Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to today's lesson. Today we'll be looking at the fall of Napoleon and how his empire fell as well. Okay, our objectives and standards. To recognize how nationalistic feelings in European countries hurt Napoleon, and to analyze why the French people welcomed Napoleon back as a leader. And our standards are there as well. Our vocabulary preview: blockade, the Continental System, guerrillas, and the scorched earth policy. And I'd like you to think about this. How do empires come to an end? I'm sure you've learned about this in other classes, or even you've seen on TV shows, or whatever the case may be. But how do empires come to an end? What are some of the factors that lead to some of the greatest empires in world history coming to an end? And also, going off of that, for our central question, how did Napoleon and his empire come to an end? Okay, so Napoleon leads to his own downfall. So Napoleon had a love of power that led to his own downfall. There were three major events that helped accelerate this process: the Continental System, the Peninsula War, and the invasion of Russia. So what was the Continental System? Napoleon enacted a blockade, or closing of ports, in Europe to prevent communication and trade with Great Britain. Napoleon called this the Continental System since its goal was to make the mainland of Europe more self-sufficient, so separate from Great Britain. The blockade was not very successful, and people, especially smugglers, ignored it. And Great Britain actually enacted their own blockade that was stronger and more efficient. So the Peninsula War. When Napoleon tried to get Portugal to accept the Continental System, he sent troops through Spain. Now the Spanish people were angry and protested about it. Napoleon responded by removing the Spanish king and placed his own brother on the throne. Well, you can imagine this only enraged the people of Spain further, and they decided to fight back. So we have these guerrillas, or groups of citizen soldiers, that are going to attack French troops. And this also triggers a sense of nationalism for different countries in Europe against Napoleon and French rule. Perhaps Napoleon's biggest mistake was the invasion of Russia. France and Russia were allies, but Russia refused to stop selling grain to the British. They also disagreed on the design of Poland. So Napoleon decides he's going to invade Russia, and as French forces invaded, Russian troops decided to pull back instead of attack French troops, and as they pulled back, they burned crops and killed livestock, and this is called scorched earth policy, which means you kind of burn your own crops and destroy your own territory, leaving the enemy nothing to use or nothing to eat. Eventually, the French forces caught up with the Russians, and there were a couple of battles, and as the French forces made their return home for France in the winter, Russian forces are going to attack here and there, and they're going to kill many soldiers, and other French soldiers would die of the cold, disease, wounds, or hunger. Remember, the Russians had used this scorched earth policy, so as the French are retreating, there's nothing left for them to eat or use to keep warm or for food or anything like that. So they were kind of stuck moving through this cold Russian winter landscape with nothing to help themselves. Okay, so the downfall of Napoleon. So all the major European powers united against Napoleon. He was forced to surrender and was exiled or banished to an island off the Italian coast. So the return of Napoleon. So Louis XVI's brother took the throne after the exile of Napoleon. However, the new king was not well liked, and Napoleon saw his opening again. He and his army took control of the government again, but this time Great Britain and other European nations were quick to respond. So the final end. Great Britain and Prussian forces attacked French troops at the Battle of Waterloo, and eventually the French were forced to retreat, and Napoleon's last attempt at power was crushed. So he was exiled again to another island, but this one was a little further in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean, where historians believe that he died of cancer, perhaps. Okay, so to wrap it up, Napoleon's power hunger leads him to make mistakes. We talked about some of the mistakes, the Continental System, the Peninsula War, and the invasion of Russia. Eventually, Napoleon is forced to surrender and he's exiled, but he tries to regain control of France when France's new king is very popular. But eventually, he's finally defeated and forced into exile for the remainder of his life. Well, everyone, that's all I have for today. So, again, please make sure you answer the questions, and I will see you later.